Welcome to the Mentium Matters podcast, where we talk about leadership, life, and the transformative power of mentoring. I'm Solveig Brown, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Rob Grubka, the CEO of Workplace Solutions for Voya Financial. Rob and I will discuss why trust is a key component to creating inclusive workplace cultures, and Rob will share the questions that have helped him navigate his career path. Before we dig in, let me tell you more about Rob. Rob Grubka is the Chief Executive Officer at Workplace Solutions for Voya Financial. Rob oversees all of Voya's workplace businesses, which represent approximately 85% of Voya's adjusted operating earnings and encompass retirement, group and voluntary insurance, savings, and benefits administration. Specifically, Rob oversees Voya's workplace strategy, products and solutions, pricing, underwriting, operations, marketing, distribution, and customer experience teams. He also serves on Voya's executive committee. Rob has nearly 30 years of actuarial product management and leadership experience. Prior to joining Voya, Rob led the group protection business at Lincoln Financial and held leadership roles in the retirement and annuity businesses. Previously, he held a variety of actuarial roles at Nationwide Financial. Rob earned a bachelor's degree in actuarial science from The Ohio State University, and he currently serves on the board of Junior Achievement USA. Welcome, Rob. I am so glad to have you as a guest today.
Great. Thank you, Sylvia. It's very good to be here with you.
Rob, when we met to discuss this episode, you mentioned the importance of building a foundation of trust within your organization. Can you tell us why building trust is so important and share how you have built trust at Voya?
Sure. Well, we'll start with the why it's so important. Look, everything we do today in the world around us, and whether it's the job and the teams that I run, or the things that we interact as consumers every day in the world, and you think so much technology, and the thing that I always try to keep in mind and ask of my leaders is, we get our jobs done through people ultimately. And so it's the people that create the technology, it's the people that create and support our customers at the end of the day. And it's people that we're trying to get work done with and partner with. And that can be stuff inside the building, but it can also be partners that we work with across the marketplace. It can be ultimately, obviously, the customers we serve. And so there's some element of, the human connection and partnership that makes all that, magical stuff happen. For myself and just my experience, working with teams and, often doing it in times where, when things are going well, it's kind of easy. You take relationships for granted. But when you're going through change or you're, dealing with difficult issues, and those can be work issues, they can be, the just everyday life issues, but people want to engage with and be supported by people that they trust. I, as a person, want to be trusted by the people that I'm working with and engaging with. Either you're building trust or you're breaking trust. I would encourage people to think about it not as like the big, massive breaches of trust. A lot of times it's the little things. It's how am I communicating, or how am I setting expectations, and how people engage with one another that really drive that, and how you're building trust or how you're breaking it. There's an element of just stepping back and reflecting and being thoughtful about that. So, look, everything we do is about, people connection and partnership at some level. And then again, at the end of the day, the customer wants to trust who they're engaging with and how we deliver on service and the experience that we ultimately provide, to me, is just so foundational. But yet, a lot of times organizations take it for granted. So, oh yeah, we hire good people, they're capable. Yep, of course they communicate well. Yes, they're people of character. And it's nothing anyone wants to think they aren't good at. The question's more is, how do you get better at it? And so that's really been sort of the why behind trust is important, and part of how I try to lead is recognizing, there's people involved. There's always room to continue to get better and be more thoughtful about how we engage, build trust. is so important to what we need to do and deliver on as a business. And then again, as people, and work with people that they trust because it just makes the job easier and more enjoyable. So I think it's just a very foundational thing that I've come to value a lot in my relationships and how we work together as a team. It's just to me very important that sort of the basics, get back to the basics, and to me that's one of the basics. Sort of the follow-on question that you asked is, well, how do I go about doing this? And I'd love to tell you I thought of all this stuff on my own and I figured it all out on my own, but I didn't. So we work with, and I've worked with over 10 years now for sure, a small consulting firm, Raina Trust Building, two leaders of that organization, Michelle and Dennis Raina, who I value as friends, but really value also as experts in this space. And so what they've enabled me to do and supported myself and my team in doing is like, how do we put numbers to what does trust look like within the team or the organization? How is a leader trusted, and how are you building trust versus breaking trust? Put some benchmarking to it such that we know, like, well, what are the behaviors that are contributing to things being good versus contributing to breaking trust, again, mostly inadvertently, but it happens. Or there may be things that I as a leader, or my leaders as leaders, the day-to-day hustle and bustle of running a team, running a business, trying to do things and accomplish a lot. Sometimes you just run past the issues that are sort of lurking there, but over time, the more times you run past it, those things can be the things that then start to slow you down or make it harder or put relationships at risk. And so having the tools and the capability to sort of measure and then assess over time, improving what are the behaviors we want to focus in on, being deliberate about that, and helping myself and the team and other leaders around the business help hold each other accountable and also understand what we're working on as a team, and again make it part of the rhythm and cadence of how we lead and how we support the people around us get done the things that we want to get done.
That is so powerful, what you just said, that it is always the people first. And I love that reminder that people do everything and that they're all humans doing all these
Right.
tasks. And that if you don't have that trust and that relationship or that bond that you can trust each other, that what's the point? So I also really like the intentionality with which you pursue that, because I think sometimes people feel like, oh, that will just happen or just organic. So I like that you have data, metrics, and you have ways to kind of follow up and assess and figure out what does create good, trusting bonds. That is
Yeah.
so interesting. So, based on your answer to that question, it really makes a lot of sense to me that you have always focused on talent development and creating a culture of inclusion because you have such a people first strategy. So, can you elaborate more on why it is important for senior executives to focus on talent and an inclusive culture?
Yeah, sure. So again, this may be one of those that feels so basic. Who's responsible for what? So those elements of no team and organization is just standing still with all the same people every day over a period of time. And so you've always got an inflow and an outflow of people, or you've got competitors doing something and you're responding to that. Like there's a lot of forces at work that can jeopardize what you think your culture is and your views of how you manage talent and organize yourself and engage people. It's always evolving. And so I think this element of being deliberate about it, being consistent about it, and overly messaging what it is that we as a team are trying to accomplish and get done is so important. And look, the last number of years have probably tested every organization in ways that they didn't anticipate they were going to be tested. Thinking about, make sort of table stakes for setting expectations with our team and our people as we think about the future. Those are the things that are going to enable you to respond in environments that are really complicated. sort of the handlebars that people are looking for rather than feeling like they're riding on the unicycle and like, well, I hope I don't fall here.
I like that you are so, first of all, so proactive on, thinking about culture and then also responsive to the fact that culture is always changing and evolving. There's always shifts in people. Curious how you at Voya have adjusted to the new normal, especially in terms of expectations for having employees back in the office or allowing hybrid or remote work.
Yeah. So the headline would be we've embraced hybrid and we've embraced virtual as an organization. And so how did we get there? Some of it is like, well, where were we? And so, we, like everybody, had, major sort of office in people congregations in particular cities, and we had a number of them as an organization that grew up in the US via acquisitions. And so, there were pockets of people and sites. Even then, though, you had kind of home bases, and then you still had a quarter of our employees that were already virtual. And then you flip the COVID switch, and all of a sudden we got, everybody pretty much virtual. And through that, culturally, we supported people during this time of change. We saw people step up and continue to perform at really high levels. And so, there's an element of, well, this is working for us as an organization, the businesses we're in, the how we work in the market, how do we support our customers. And so it's been well, why change it if it's working? I think we've gotten a lot of feedback from employees. They appreciate the flexibility. They appreciate not having to, fill up the car as much. They appreciate not having to pay for parking. They appreciate different elements of, what remote work means and flexibility that comes with it. And then as an organization, obviously, we've still got the same goals, the same accountability to show up and serve our customers effectively, the same, partners in the marketplace that we need to partner well with. Um, those things haven't changed. If anything, they've gotten more important as we've gone through this because we're dealing with people and we're dealing with partners and customers that are also going through a tremendous amount of change. And so for us, we felt comfortable staying with what was working during COVID. Now, as we've come out the other side, there are parts of the business, there are teams within the businesses who have leaned into, getting some people back, but it's not anywhere where it's a sort of bounce back to what was prior to COVID. It's still a more focused, run the business mindset that is about flexibility, giving people the ability to do their jobs in sort of more expansive ways, but still with really high expectations, again, if not higher. A lot of companies, and this doesn't mean we're doing it the right way and everybody else who's pushing to get people back in the office is doing it the wrong way. I think it's just reflective of where we're at and what we do, and they can say the same thing. But at the same point, how do you get there and how do you continue to support your people? And what are their expectations now? Sort of what they think about I as an employee or all the people that work within my business. Companies will figure it out. And just like someone else, we may find, well, geez, what we're doing now isn't continuing to work for us. We just got to be able to be in tune and have those kinds of conversations with our employees.
And that totally relates to everything you've been talking about, that it's everything is built on trust, that it's people first, and that you are responsive to the needs of the people, and that you are have that flexibility within your culture to respond to what is now, what people are wanting. And like you said, it may change going down the road, but for now, you're like, this is a good fit. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story because so
Yep.
many companies are dealing with what the new normal is, what the expectations are, because we'll never go back to what it was like before. And so that's it's interesting just to hear how companies are dealing with this.
Yeah.
So Rob, you have had an extraordinary career. As you look back, what has helped you navigate your career path?
I think there's a willingness to not necessarily have all the answers on what my career path was going to be. Often, at least for myself, it's evolved in surprising ways, surprising points in time. So I think there's a element of being ready for change. And, sometimes it can be little change and sometimes it's big, but I think having the mindset and, the wherewithal to just continue to learn and look for opportunities to learn and at times be willing to take risks, whether it's changing the job within a company or, trying to change the company I worked with or just be in a position that I was able to respond to change that was being driven by others and the things and the circumstances around me. I've got a technical background as an actuary, and that prepared me well for a lot of different things from just understanding a business and understanding how a business makes money and some of the things that go along with that. That certainly helped me a lot be able to adapt and adjust over time. There's probably things I would have never been exposed to or done if I hadn't taken some deliberate moves.
Right. And then when we were in the pre-interview, you talked about like every couple of years you asked yourself questions about, like kind of where you're at. Do you want to talk more about like what questions you asked yourself to kind of assess
Yeah,
whether you should take that risk or whether you should stay where you were?
yeah, yeah. So, this wasn't because I knew it was the right way to think about it, but it just happened to work over time anyway, was, every couple of years, well, actually every year, but think about the next couple of years that were to come and think of like, okay, am I in a job that I'm, feel good about? I'm learning things, I'm contributing in good ways. And each time I'd ask myself that question, okay, if I didn't feel like I was maybe in the right role or it was time for a change, okay, then what am I going to do about it? And so, sometimes that was looking for different opportunities within the company I was at. Sometimes that meant like, oh, I probably ought to start, cleaning up my resume and thinking about talking to people outside the building that I was in, and getting exposure to different opportunities that could be open and available in market. Every year I'd sort of like, oh, okay, does this feel like the right fit for the next couple of years? Maybe a couple of years feels like an eternity to some people, but much beyond 2 years, like who knows? There's going to be so much that is different and changing, going on around you. But a couple of years sort of felt like, okay, that's reasonable to think about. Things can change, which is why you ask yourself that question every year of, how are things changed? How have I changed? How has the role changed? And what do I think about the opportunities beyond it? And that proved to be a good kind of exercise over my career.
Yeah, I like that intentionality of checking in every year of just seeing where am I at? Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I liking what am I doing? Am I contributing? And then, like you said, being willing to take those risks or start, figuring out where would be their next path of growth. Rob, we have time for one final question. What would be your advice to up and coming leaders?
Yeah, so I think maybe tying back to what I was just talking about is, as leaders, sometimes there's people like you think, oh, hey, there's a path to success, whatever you define as success. And so I would just encourage people to think about whatever your path is and whatever you want it to be, but be deliberate about it, be intentional about it, and be willing to know that you may not be on a straight line path. There may be turns and twists in the road, and your experience and the places you work and the things, the industries that you're in are going to be evolving. So I think that be accountable. If you don't know, there's a really good chance the people around you that want to support you or the mentors, like they don't always have all the answers, right? Like there's an engagement with the process, the thinking, the direction that we want to go in, and what do you want that to look like rather than waiting for someone to tell you? And this element of sort of thinking about there's a way to grow or a way to develop. And, unfortunately, or fortunately, there's a bunch of ways to grow and develop. And recognizing that, again, without being deliberate and thoughtful about it, really owning your career, your development, how you network within your company, outside your company, and be aware of where things are going.
Rob, that is great advice. I so appreciate all that you have shared today about how Voya has created, a workplace culture built on trust that is focused on people first and that has some flexibility to kind of the way things are always evolving. And I really like the question that you ask yourself every year of, where am I at? Am I still contributing? And I appreciate that advice on taking charge of your own career path and your networking and everything. So you have given us so many interesting things to think about and take action on today. So thank you so much for all that you have shared with us.
And with that, it was great to be here, and thank you, and thank the Mentium organization and all you do to help support people. It's a great organization. Really enjoyed being part of it.
Oh, thanks, Rob. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the Mentium Matters podcast.